In her previous life, my sister-in-law was pregnant with quadruplets. But during the prenatal checkup, it was found that two were XYY syndrome super male and one was Down syndrome. I interpreted the report for her, told her what XYY syndrome and Down syndrome meant, and then, on the grounds of the high risk of multiple pregnancies, persuaded her to have a fetal reduction surgery. Later, she gave birth to a daughter, healthy and with all limbs intact. But she had a massive hemorrhage during childbirth and had her uterus removed. Out of the operating room, she seemed crazy and screamed furiously. The other three were all boys. You were jealous of me. So you tricked me into having the surgery. Give my sons back to me. In her excitement, she pushed me down from the upstairs. When I opened my eyes again, my sister-in-law was asking me about the test results. I handed her the report and said with a smile, 3 boys and 1 girl. What a perfect combination. Mia, you are so blessed. One sister-in-law. What do XYY and high risk mean? I don't understand them at all. In Mia's confused voice, I slowly opened my eyes. When I realized that I was sitting on a hospital chair, I suddenly understood. I had been reborn. Mia beside me impatiently stuffed the report into my hand. Although you are in the gastroenterology department, you must have studied these things. Interpret them for me quickly. What on earth does XYY mean? I stared fixedly at the conclusion on the report. In an instant, a flood of memories rushed into my mind. In the previous life, Mia was pregnant with quadruplets. But during the non-invasive prenatal test, the test results showed abnormalities. Since it was quadruplets, to increase the accuracy, the doctor recommended amniocentesis. When the test results came out, of the 4 fetuses, 2 were XYY syndrome super male, 1 was Down syndrome, and only 1 was completely normal. At that time, she didn't understand what these meant, so she came to ask me. I told her that XYY syndrome super male was born bad, with extremely strong aggressiveness. I searched for a lot of news for her to see. Most of those who killed their parents, endangered society, and even went to prison were found to have XYY syndrome super male. I took out pictures of Down syndrome children for her to see again. Most of these children were intellectually disabled, had weak motor abilities, and might even be accompanied by other organ deformities. If she rashly gave birth to such a child, his life might be very difficult. I asked her, can you protect him all your life? Can you accept taking a disabled child with you all your life? She hesitated a little, and the hand holding the report was trembling slightly. After a long while, she raised her head and asked me, does XYY syndrome super male mean it's a boy? Yes. I saw the reluctance in her eyes, but still couldn't help persuading her. At least there is 1 healthy one now. Let's abort the 3 with problems. You can still give birth in the future if you want. Even if you don't, it's also very good for our family to raise the healthy one safely. Isn't it? Her eyes were red, and she asked me back, is the healthy one a boy or a girl? I understood what she wanted to ask, but still told the truth. I can't get into the ultrasound room, and my colleagues won't disclose it either. However, it doesn't matter whether it's a boy or a girl nowadays, and you can give birth again in the future. She didn't speak, lowered her head, and slowly stroked her belly. After struggling for a long time, she said, Sister-in-law, I'd better have the abortion. I was relieved and made an appointment for her with the best director here to perform the fetal reduction. The fetal reduction surgery was very successful. Mia rested in bed for a month and then went to work. 2 later, during the prenatal checkups, everything went smoothly, and I thought this matter had finally come to an end. Who knew that she had a massive hemorrhage on the day of childbirth? To save her life, the doctor removed her uterus. The baby was brought out. It was a girl, very healthy and beautiful. But the moment her mother-in-law heard that it was a girl, her face changed instantly. She stared at the delivery room with slanting eyes and cursed through gritted teeth. 3 out of 4 were aborted, and only a girl was left. This hospital did it on purpose. They just want to make the Ryan family extinct. She kept pushing and shoving me as husband. Ryan, go find a lawyer right now. Let's sue them. If I don't sue them until they go bankrupt, I'm his grandson. Ryan was so angry that his eyes were red. He kicked the delivery room door, as if to vent his anger, and then turned around and left. My husband, Max, also pointed at my nose and cursed. It's all because you, a slut, talked too much and made her have the fetal reduction. If Mia gets divorced this time, I won't let you off. After a while, Mia was pushed out from inside. When she learned that her uterus had been removed, although she was weak, she still had a fierce look on her face and seemed crazy. She struggled to get up from the bed, gritted her teeth and pounced on me, grabbed my neck and screamed crazily. I don't have my uterus anymore. How can I give birth in the future? I finally got pregnant with 4, but only gave birth to a girl. How can I face the Ryan family? Serafina, you are jealous of me. You can't get pregnant. So you are jealous that I had 3 sons. I will kill you. Kill you. She was crazy. And the strength in her hands was getting stronger and stronger. I couldn't break free. My vision went black. And my legs went limp and I fell to the ground. Fortunately, we were in the hospital. Several nurses hurriedly pinned her down in a flurry and gave her a sedative. She fell asleep. But a week later, she went to the dean's office. She said that I colluded with others outside and exchanged the fetal gender for kickbacks. She provided a lot of screenshots of chat records. All of them were forged by my husband Max, who secretly used my mobile phone behind my back. I couldn't defend myself and was fired by the hospital. I didn't defend myself too much. After all, she had just lost her uterus and was still in the postpartum confinement period. I can understand that she was in a bad mood, but she still wouldn't let it go. After the postpartum confinement period, when no one was around, she pushed me down the stairs. I couldn't dodge in time and my head hit a stone. I lost my breath on the spot. This scene happened to be captured by the surveillance camera, and Mia was immediately arrested. But I had no parents. My husband and mother-in-law, as relatives, issued a letter of understanding on the grounds that the parturiente had unstable postpartum hormones. The court, considering that Mia was in the lactation period, sentenced her to probation. But later, Ryan proposed divorce because she could no longer have children. She vented her resentment of being abandoned by her husband on the only girl and beat and scolded her all day long. Before long, the child was beaten to death. Thinking of this, a chill spread up my back and I shivered subconsciously. Mia beside me was still waiting anxiously for my reply. I was stiff all over, swallowed my saliva with some fear, and then forced a smile. Congratulations, Mia. You are pregnant with 3 boys and 1 girl. You are so lucky. Hearing what I said, she, who had been nervous before, immediately burst into laughter. Really? 3 boys? She became worried again. Will it be difficult to give birth? Will my belly be stretched out of shape? Of course not. I pretended to be envious. You are now a great contributor to the Ryan family. As long as you give birth to the children, they will surely hire an nanny for you and get you a beauty card. What are you afraid of getting out of shape? Hearing this, her eyes immediately lit up. Although Ryan was good for nothing, his family ran a factory. The annual income was at least 1 million. She had originally wanted to firmly tie Ryan's heart by giving birth to more sons. Now, she was pregnant with 3 at once. Seemingly imagining the wonderful life in the future, she relaxed completely, leaning lazily on the hospital chair and smiling extremely happily. Great. God is really helping me. She suddenly thought of something and asked me, what does XYY mean? And what about this high risk of 21? I explained, 2 super male chromosomes and 1 Down syndrome child. It is said that those with super male chromosomes are relatively rough. But it is not absolute. I pulled out the recent rumor refuting video released by the doctor for her to watch. People's development mainly depends on postnatal cultivation. People are born good-natured. The social environment is very important. As long as you teach them carefully. How could there be problems? Moreover, you are so kind. How bad could the children you give birth to be? Besides, these are 2 sons. In ancient times, they would be great generals. In modern times, they are also labor forces. Your family runs a factory and just needs manpower. Right? What about Down syndrome? She still looked at the report worriedly. I smiled. This is up to you to decide. However, you are already 20 weeks pregnant. The risk of fetal reduction is very high. If not done properly, all 4 children may be lost, and it will also cause great harm to you. You should think it over carefully. She fell silent, her hand slowly stroking her belly, as if hesitating. She was silent for a long time. So long that when I thought she was going to a fetal reduction, she slowly said, "True. The Ryan family is so rich that they can afford to raise a Down syndrome child. I will give birth to it. First to tie his heart and also prove my fertility. I won't worry about having more children in the future." 3 after she left, I told the media that she was pregnant with super male twins. I also told them the time of Mia's next prenatal checkup. The next prenatal checkup was a month later. On this day, I had been waiting at the hospital early. Sure enough, as soon as Mia appeared, several people with long and short-range cameras and lighting boards immediately swarmed up. "Excuse me. Are you Miss Mia?" I recognized Mia at a glance. Mia was almost startled. "Who are you?" "We are from the media. We heard that you are pregnant with super male twins and want to interview you." Mia turned pale with fright and hurriedly covered her belly. "How did you know?" The reporter didn't care what she asked at all, and quickly put the microphone to her mouth. "Do you plan to give birth to these twins? It is said that they are also mosaic super male. It may not be possible to detect if they commit crimes in the future. You know they are super male, right? If you insist on giving birth to them, it is a harm to society. You know?" A female internet celebrity stared at her with a self-righteous look. "It is said that you are also pregnant with a Down syndrome child. Among the 4 fetuses, 3 have problems in total. Do you really plan to give birth to them? What do you think?" Mia was so confused by these questions that she quickly dragged me over and pulled me in front of her to block for her. I quickly comforted her. "Don't be afraid. Say whatever you want. You are the mother of the children. You have the right to decide whether the children stay or go. And you are pregnant with quadruplets, which is very rare. Once the interview is published, everyone will know. Then many milk powder and diaper manufacturers will come to help you. Your children will be born winners at the starting line." Her nervous look eased a little, and there was also a little more disdain. The Ryan family is rich, and doesn't care about this at all. I hit her out of hatred for her being so stupid. "You are so silly. That's all the Ryan family's money. You are pregnant and have no job. If you can earn some money back for the Ryan family, won't they think more highly of you? Who doesn't want more money?" Hearing what I said, she finally became happy. She said, "Just a moment," to the interviewers, tittied her hair, and then asked me for a lipstick and touched up her lips. Then she turned around, showed a just right smile, and answered the reporters' questions one by one. "Well, I think that when a child comes, it is fate. No matter what he is like. As a mother, I will definitely not give up on them. What's wrong with Down syndrome? Should a Down syndrome baby be aborted? He chose you to be his mother, so he must think that you are capable of taking good care of him. And I happen to be capable and loving. I think I can take care of him for a lifetime. Besides, doctors have already refuted the rumor. Super male is not born bad. Stop spreading this here. Okay? Can you afford to cause social panic?" The more she talked, the more confident she became, as if she had turned into a deity full of mercy for all living beings, shining all over. "You always say this should be aborted. That should be aborted. It was not easy for me to be pregnant with quadruplets. With just a casual word from you, 3 lives are gone. Have you ever been parents? Are you really so cruel? Even a tiger doesn't eat its cubs. The babies in my belly are my children. What right do you have to blame me? Easily convicting a fetus is the real crime. Those people were labeled by her and all fell silent. Mia became more and more complacent. She vehemently condemned those people for being unscrupulous and also accused the hospital security of not doing a good job. Then she didn't answer any of their questions anymore, and went in for the prenatal checkup with her chin held high. For that night. This video became popular on the internet. Mia's scolding was in sharp contrast to the online scolding comments. The comments below instantly soared to over 999. What on earth are you doing? Being pregnant with a bad seed, and still being so self-righteous. It's really terrifying. It is said that super male will secrete a kind of hormone, making the mother reluctant to abort him. I feel that she has been controlled by the hormone. Look at her IP. Fortunately, she is in City C. I won't go there in the future. It's so horrible. What kind of children can such a person raise? Maybe there is a super male gene in her family. That night, there were also curses in Mia's home one after another. But they were all cursing the journalists. Ryan's mother watched the news and couldn't help spitting. They don't know anything. How many women can be pregnant with 4 at once? They are just jealous. Yes. Mia also joined in the cursing. What is super male? Super male. Superhero. When they are born. Let's see who dares to nag. Ryan nodded. Our family runs a factory. When they grow up and take over the factory business. Let's see who dares to rebel at the bottom. Several people reached an agreement, no matter what the outside world says. They are all jealous of them, and can't bear to see them well. They decided to give birth to all 4 children. At the end of the conversation, Ryan was particularly moved and hugged Mia. You've worked hard. It was not easy to be pregnant with 4. And you still have to endure such great rumors. Ryan's mother also immediately promised, wait until the children are born. And I will buy you a villa, and put it in the names of your sons. Really? Mia was so happy that she couldn't close her mouth. Thank you. Mom. Mom. You are so kind. The next day, people surrounded their home. Some local residents heard about this and formed an anti-super male alliance. Some people from the community came to their door together. Even the community workers came to their door to persuade them to abort the children. Over 100 people blocked the entire corridor tightly, shouting loudly and strongly demanding that they have an abortion. The few people in front also brought microphones, cameras and fill light devices to do a live broadcast for the whole network. They earnestly persuaded Mia to have an abortion and asked Mia to make a promise in front of hundreds of thousands of fans. Mia hid at home and didn't dare to come out at all. These people thought that Mia was afraid. So they banged on the door and shouted Mia's name loudly. The door of Mia's house remained tightly closed. This silence made them shout more fiercely. Some people couldn't wait and began to kick the door. But at this time, the door was opened. Ryan rushed out of the house, suddenly snatched all the things in their hands and smashed them hard on the ground. For a while, the devices and mobile phones were smashed all over the floor. Ryan stared at the few people in front with a sinister look. Get out! Get out of here! Those people whined and their eyes froze in place. Seeing that no one moved, Ryan's eyes became fierce. And he gave a flying kick to the chest of the female journalist in the front, kicking her to the ground. If he started fighting, it would be a big deal. Everyone's faces changed greatly. And there was an uproar. They all stepped forward to rebuke Ryan. But Ryan's eyes were red, showing a sinister and fierce look. He grabbed the collar of the male journalist who was scolding him the most, slapped him several times in a row, and stared at his face ferociously and asked, "Are you leaving?" Before the man could speak, Ryan grabbed his neck and lifted him off the ground, his face distorted. Word by word, "Get out. Delete the video. Or I'll kill you." The male journalist was frightened. Ryan was nearly 2 meters tall. He was lifted in the air by Ryan, struggling continuously, gasping for breath. Ryan was gripping his neck tightly, and he couldn't break free no matter what. His face turned pale with fear. His 2 eyes were wide open, and his begging voice was trembling, almost spilling out from the crack of his throat. Let's go. Let's go right now. Ryan threw him to the ground like throwing a chick. Over 100 people scattered like birds, fleeing in panic. That night, all the videos about them on the internet disappeared without a trace. 5 months later, Mia made an appointment for a cesarean section. In order to see their eldest grandson, Ryan's family all went there. As Mia's mother-in-law was considered her family member, she also took us there. Several of us waited outside the operating room. After waiting for a full hour, the door of the ward finally opened. The nurse hurriedly called Ryan in for a talk. After a long time, the nurse came out full of regret. The patient had a massive hemorrhage. Both the baby and the mother were saved, but the baby was born relatively small and needs to stay in the incubator for a while. As for the adult, she felt a bit regretful. The life is saved, but the uterus is gone. Hearing this, the mother-in-law's eyes went black and she almost fainted. Max seemed to have been mentally prepared for it long ago. He quickly held the mother-in-law, pinched her philtrum desperately, and then hurriedly comforted her. She already has 3 sons. It doesn't matter if the uterus is gone. As soon as she heard this, Ryan's mother also quickly asked, "How are the children? Are they 3 boys and 1 girl?" "Yes. 3 boys and 1 girl. But one of them..." A nurse gave Ryan a suspicious look and hesitated to speak. "You had prenatal checkups before, right? One of them looks a bit like a Down syndrome child." "Yes. We did. It doesn't matter." Ryan waved his hand. "No matter how much he is a Down syndrome child, he is still my son." The nurse gave him a strange look and finally left. Ryan and his mother made sure that the 3 sons were all right and then went home contentedly. 3 days later, Mia was transferred out of the ICU. She was extremely weak. Her lips were pale, and she seemed to have lost all her vitality. Leaning weakly on the bed, the mother-in-law hurried over, fed her water, and showed great concern for her. Knowing that her uterus was gone, Mia began to cry as soon as she saw the mother-in-law. The mother-in-law also hugged her and cried bitterly. Fortunately, she already had 3 sons. After crying for a while, Mia summoned up her strength and went to breastfeed them. Ryan's family had long disappeared. They knew that they couldn't see their eldest grandson for a while, so they simply went home to sleep. After staying in the hospital for a few more days, Mia was discharged from the hospital with the children. At first, because she didn't want her daughter to marry far away, the mother-in-law specifically asked Ryan to buy a house opposite ours. So now it is much more convenient for the mother-in-law to visit her grandson. She runs to the opposite house every few days. I have also visited those children several times. Although they were smaller than other children when they were born, they grew very fast. Just 3 months old, they were much bigger than the children of the same age in the community. And their appetites were astonishing. In order to feed them enough, Mia ate like crazy. 3 months after giving birth, she was already 40 pounds fatter than before giving birth. But as the children grew up, she increasingly didn't want to breastfeed, because the strength of those 2 super male children was really too great. Every time she breastfed, Mia was in so much pain that she cried. She wanted to stop breastfeeding, but Ryan's mother said that her eldest grandson must have breast milk. Mia didn't dare to resist at all, and could only continue to breastfeed. When they were 8 months old, the 2 super male children already looked like 1-year-old children. Ryan's mother was extremely proud. My eldest grandson. My eldest grandson. This is my dream grandson." When they were 9 months old, when Mia was breastfeeding them as usual, the 2 super male children directly bit off Mia's nipple. Mia was quickly sent to the hospital by Ryan for rescue. The doctor gave her an anesthetic and performed an operation. And he also told her that she must not breastfeed during this period. Otherwise it would cause harm to the children's bodies. As soon as Ryan's mother heard this, she no longer required her to breastfeed. Only then was Mia able to stop breastfeeding. 6 In the blink of an eye. The children were 1 year old. When she had nothing to do, Ryan's mother would push for strollers around in the community. Whenever she met someone, she would show off that these were her for precious children. But the people in the community all knew that she had given birth to 2 super male children. When they saw her coming, they all stayed far away. She didn't realize it at all and would move closer whenever she saw someone walking their babies. After a long time, no one in the community came out to walk their babies. Ryan's mother named the children. For the eldest super male child, she proudly named him Leo. The second super male child was named Nathan. The Down syndrome child was named Oliver. Which means as long as the Green Mountains remain, there will always be firewood. And there will be opportunities to have sons in the future. The only normal girl was named Luna. The children gradually grew up. Unlike other children liked toys and playing with water. The 2 super male children in their family liked to slap each other. When they saw the other in pain with a grimace, they also giggled. Later, they might have realized that slapping each other would hurt themselves. So they both reached out their hands to their Down syndrome younger brother at the same time. Oliver was beaten until he cried. When they heard the crying, they became even more excited and punched and kicked Oliver. Every time at this time, Luna would be so frightened, and that she cried loudly on the side. But every time she cried, the mother-in-law would take her to one side, cursing, "You naughty girl. Why are you crying? Your brothers are growing stronger. Don't scare them." She reached out and slapped Luna twice on the face. "Cry again, and Grandma will beat you." Luna was so frightened, and that she froze and didn't even dare to cry. Ryan's mother became even more proud. Children need to be beaten. They won't become useful if they are not beaten. Later, whenever Luna was frightened to cry by Leo and Nathan, the mother-in-law would slap her hard. After a few times, Luna didn't cry either. There was no light in her eyes. Like a rag doll. Her eyes were dull, and she could only be in a daze. When they had their 2-year-old physical examination, the doctor said that Luna might have autism. The doctor asked them to take Luna to a higher-level hospital for a re-examination as soon as possible, and go to the corresponding institutions for intervention. Ryan's mother directly refused. Why spend money on this naughty girl? She will be married into someone else's family in the future anyway. Anyway, I have 3 grandsons. Which is enough. 7 The children grew up day by day. Oliver was already a bit dull, and he was beaten by them every few days. Now he looked even more dull, only knowing to giggle all day long, and didn't even know to wipe his snot-covered face. Luna also didn't say a word, sitting in the corner all day long, holding a doll in a daze. Leo and Nathan had become the bullies in the community, since they were 4 years old. On weekdays, they run amok in the community. Whenever they see someone they don't like, they rush straight up and beat them. Because of this, Ryan's mother has paid a lot of money in compensation within the community. But she still strokes the heads of her 2 children and praises them. Boys should be like this. Shrewd and strong. Nowadays, little boys are all too sissy. If this goes on, they will be useless. As time passes, everyone is afraid of their family. Not only are children unwilling to play with them, but even adults take a detour when they see them. Few people can be seen in the community during the day. Feeling a bit bored, the 2 children killed and skinned all the kittens and puppies in the community. They also stole money from home and bought a lot of firecrackers. Every day, they crouched at the entrance of the community. Whenever they saw someone riding a bicycle in, they threw firecrackers under the wheels. For several consecutive days, they blew out several tires. Grandpolly in the neighboring unit building was so frightened, and that his blood pressure soared to 180. And he was sent to the hospital by his family on the same day. The news reached Mia's ears. She called her 2 sons over and scolded them. "We are all from the same community. You should know your limits when you play. If this goes on, Who will dare to talk to us in the future? Leo's eyes were gloomy. And there was a smile on his lips. Then kill them all. Mia told them to shut up. She took Leo and Nathan to apologize to Grandpa Lee and bought a lot of health products. But when Mia led the two into the ward, they looked at each other, then rushed over with an evil grin, and bit the old man's toe hard. Grandpa Lee was so frightened that he almost jumped out of bed. He kicked his legs frantically. Let go. Let go. He tried desperately to hide at the head of the bed. But the two children were too strong. No matter how he tried to break free, it only made his toes pull in the opposite direction. 2 toes were bitten off alive. Mia screamed in fright. Let go. You let go. That's Grandpa Lee. He bought you toys when you were little. She wanted to step forward and pull the toes out of the 2 children's mouths. But they giggled, then turned their heads, spat out the toes with a paw, and then bit Mia's arms hard, one on the left and one on the right. At this time, Mia couldn't care about Grandpa Lee anymore. She sat down on the ground and pushed Leo and Nathan desperately. But they were too strong and had bitten down really hard. They just held on to her arms tightly and wouldn't let go. 2 pieces of flesh were bitten off her arms. The several old people in the same ward saw the 2 children with blood-filled mouths and screamed in horror. The family members frantically pressed the bell and had them driven out. Their story quickly spread in the hospital. Everyone looked at them with fear in their eyes. Mia was injured, but everyone pointed at her and told her to get out. Unable to bear the strange looks, she asked a nurse to dress her wound simply, got an injection, and then fled in a hurry. Back home, when Ryan's mother heard that Mia had been bitten, she couldn't help but spit and cursed. What a useless thing. Such a grown-up can be bitten by children. How stupid. Leo and Nathan hid behind their grandmother, giggling and making faces at her. Mia was furious. They are devils. They are lunatics. You didn't see what they were like just now. But before she could finish, Ryan's mother interrupted her. Don't slander my eldest grandsons. They are kind-hearted children. It's you who are useless. Maybe you knocked it somewhere. Leo and Nathan also laughed heartily. Mom must have been bitten by an uncle when she was playing with him outside. They laughed. And Ryan's mother laughed along. But she soon stopped laughing. Grandpa Lee's son brought the property management staff and community workers to the door and demanded that Ryan's family be driven out of the community. Their family is like a bomb. A devil. Letting them live here is like planting a mine. Maybe one day they will kill all of us. He shouted excitedly and took out a petition signed by all the residents in the community. I strongly demand that their family be driven out. If they are not driven out, I will post what they have done on the internet and make their family famous. Make the community famous. Make the whole neighborhood famous. When Ryan's mother heard this, she was immediately unhappy. She stood at the front and protected her 2 eldest grandsons firmly behind her. What devil? The children are just a bit naughty. Were your children very obedient since they were young? Such grown-ups can't even tolerate children. Were you born this big? The 2 naughty children giggled behind their grandmother. They didn't know where they got a firecracker from, only to hear Nathan shout, into the boiling oil pan. Another one went, whoosh. Suddenly, many firecrackers brushed past those people's hair and exploded crackling on the ground. The several people were so frightened, and that they dodged in all directions. And the corridor instantly became a mess. Leo and Nathan were extremely happy and clapped their hands excitedly and shouted. The dress of the community girl on the side was burned with a black hole. She immediately screamed, bad seeds. Born bad seeds. Doesn't your family care? Knowing he is bad, you still let him play with firecrackers. Ryan's mother squinted her eyes, not willing to be outdone. What's wrong with playing firecrackers? Don't your children play firecrackers? And make it clear, they are usually very gentle. It was you who scared them. So they became like this. Hearing this, several people became even angrier and pointed at Ryan's family, starting to scold them all at once. Today, you scared Grandpa Lee so much that he was hospitalized. What about tomorrow? Can you guarantee what they will do tomorrow? If you don't discipline them anymore, these two children will end up in a juvenile detention center sooner or later. Before he finished speaking, Nathan threw a firecracker into his mouth. Fortunately, because of the great difference in height, the firecracker only blew a hole in his collar. The man was so frightened that he shuddered and crouched on the ground. Seeing his embarrassed appearance, Leo burst out laughing. The people who came saw such a scene, and were all extremely angry. They left after throwing out some harsh words. They are still young, and won't bear criminal liability. But they have guardians. If this continues, your whole family will be waiting to go to jail. They knew that talking to this family was like casting pearls before swine. After saying what they should say, several people left. Mia didn't dare to show up just now. Seeing those people leave, she pulled the two children and wanted to take them to apologize to the people in the community. But the two of them immediately hid behind their grandma. Nathan stared at his mother with a resentful look on his face, with a smile on his lips, and his eyes looked so mature that he didn't seem like a child at all. Mia shivered. Ryan's mother protected her grandsons. Don't you dare take them to apologize. These unruly people. I don't deign to be their neighbor at all. In a while, I will buy a villa for you to live in. Leo and Nathan giggled. Grandma is so nice. Grandma is so nice. We will reward Grandma. 9 in the evening. After Ryan's mother entered the room, she suddenly let out a scream. The sound was so loud that Ryan and the others were so frightened, and that they quickly turned on the lights and rushed to his mother's room. But they saw that his mother was extremely frightened, slumped on the ground, and there was a pool of blood under her body. Ryan was startled. Mom, what's wrong with you? Did you fall somewhere? His mother shook her head desperately. Her face was pale and she was too frightened to speak. Following the direction she pointed, Ryan saw a cat on her bed. The cat had been skinned by someone and stuffed into her quilt, all bloody and flesh mangled. The quilt, the bed sheet, and even the wall were all covered with blood. Ryan's face immediately darkened. It was Leo and Nathan who did this, right? The two children were fast asleep at this time. Ryan strode over, picked them up, and swung a stick at them. But he didn't expect that Leo and Nathan were feigning sleep. The two of them nimbly dodged the swinging stick, and each of them jumped up and kicked Ryan in the face. They were very strong. With one kick, 2 of Ryan's teeth fell out. Ryan, with his eyes blood red, almost instantly grabbed the two by the necks, lifted them up and threw them to the ground. With a clang, the two fell to the ground and howled loudly. Ryan's mother shouted, "Let go! Let go! These are my precious grandsons." She quickly rushed over to see how badly they were hurt. But the two showed that terrifying expression again. Leo and Nathan suddenly jumped up from the ground and each of them bit Ryan's mother's ear firmly on one side. Nathan kicked Ryan's mother hard in the stomach again. "It was all because you told on us. It was all because you told on us. I will bite you to death." The other one also screamed, "You don't like the gift my brother and I gave you. So just go die." They bit Ryan's mother's ear, pressed her head firmly, and with a sudden force, the ear was torn off. Bloody. Ryan's mother let out a scream, rolled her eyes, and completely fainted from the pain. Ryan sent his mother to the hospital. Leo and Nathan wanted to follow, but Ryan stopped them. He asked Mia to take good care of the children at home and not let anything else happen. Mia was terrified. She begged Ryan to take her with him. She didn't want to stay in the same room with Leo and Nathan. Ryan patted her on the shoulder reassuringly. "Don't worry. My father is already on his way here. He is the best at disciplining children." That night, Grandpa came. When he came, he also brought a long stick, a rattan cane passed down in the family. He firmly believed that spare the rod and spoil the child. Back then, Ryan was also short-tempered, and liked to hit people. It was by being whipped with this rattan cane by him one by one that he became honest. The moment he saw Leo and Nathan, he directly threw the rattan cane in front of them. He had been a factory owner all his life and spoke with great force. Since no one disciplines you, then I will discipline you. From now on, do everything as I command. He wrote a long page of family rules, including getting up at 7 a.m., going to bed before 9 p.m., and not taking more than half an hour for each meal. But before he finished reading, a piece of paper was snatched away and torn up by Leo and Nathan. The two grinned at him. "Grandpa, you are finally here. We have been looking forward to you for a long time." Grandpa didn't know how dangerous the two were yet. He picked up the rattan cane and whipped it on the ground. "All of you be honest. No grinning when I'm talking." But before he finished speaking, the rattan cane was snatched away by the two. With a snap, the rattan cane was broken into. Grandpa opened his eyes wide, and before he could speak, there was another snap, and the rattan cane whipped on his head. Immediately, a red mark appeared on his forehead. Leo burst out laughing, and Nathan also showed an evil smile. "Next time you threaten someone, it won't be as simple as a knock on the head." Grandfather was petrified. "How are you even more terrifying than your father back then?" Nath uncurled his lips. "Really? What was our father like back then?" Oliver on the side burst into loud wails but was whipped by Nathan. "All you do is cry all day long. It's so noisy." Luna glanced at them inferently, her expression dull, without any ripple. This very expression angered Nathan again. He raised the rattan cane, about to lash it at Luna. The old man quickly stepped sideways and blocked her. The cane landed directly on him, and he grimaced in pain. Just as he was about to scold, he was kicked to the ground by Nathan. Nathan stepped on him, thrust the broken tip of the rattan into his waist suddenly, and then laughed happily. "You're quite kind-hearted. If you're so kind-hearted, why haven't you come to see us much over the years? Is making money that important? Or do you not like us?" By this time, the old man was sweating all over from the pain. He was completely pinned down by Nathan and couldn't move at all, and his hand was twisted into a strange angle. Moreover, he was already old. He wanted to struggle but couldn't move no matter how hard he tried. He could only beg for mercy. "Second grandson, let me stand up first. Let's have a good talk." Nath uncurled his lips. "Boring. You give in so quickly." He moved his leg away a little, and grandfather stood up with difficulty. Fortunately, Nathan didn't stab deeply, and there was only a little blood on his waist. He looked at the bruises on Luna's arm with great distress, and held Luna tightly in his arms, saying to Mia, "If you can't take care of her, I'll simply take her away. I'll take her to my hometown and cure her illness." Mia couldn't take care of Luna at this time either. She grabbed the old man with a sobbing voice. "Even if you want to leave, it's not now. You can't leave me alone. At least wait for Ryan and the others to come back." The old man was sweating all over his head. "I'm not used to being here. I'll go to the hospital to see Ryan's mother and then leave." He picked up Luna, and was about to run away. Mia really didn't want to be in the same room with the two super male children, so she also wanted to follow. Since everyone was leaving, Leo and Nathan also followed all the way. 77 Several people rushed into the hospital in a mighty manner. Ryan's mother was still recuperating in the hospital bed. Both of her ears were wrapped with gauze, looking extremely funny. Ryan on the side was peeling an apple for her. Seeing them coming, Ryan's mother was almost startled and immediately became vigilant. "What are you doing here?" Grandfather turned sideways to block Leo and Nathan's view and quickly winked at Ryan's mother. "Why don't you come back to my hometown with me? The factory in my hometown is busy with business and needs hands. The two children here are already grown up and don't need your care anymore." Ryan's mother understood what he meant and quickly shook her head to refuse. No, I still need to stay and take care of my son. He is my only precious son in my life. If he is bullied, what will I do for the rest of my life?" She saw Luna in grandfather's arms. "Take her away. Your brother's family has always wanted a granddaughter. Just give her to them." Ryan's mother got off the bed and wanted to see the old man off. But the moment she put her foot into the shoe, She cried out. Ouch. She quickly withdrew her foot. But the shoe was already full of blood. Someone had put a nail in her shoe. The mother-in-law quickly took off the other shoe. But something in the shoe suddenly bit her foot. Frightened, she reached in to touch it. And as a result, a centipede bit her hand. Leo and Nathan laughed loudly beside them. Fun. So much fun. It's really fun. Ryan's mother was so angry that she bared her teeth. She glanced at Mia, who was shrinking her neck and not daring to make a sound, and cursed angrily. It's you. You scoundrel. You insisted on giving birth to them back then. If it weren't for you, we might have given birth to healthy grandchildren by now. You're such an idiot. Hearing this, Mia also got angry. How was I scolded back then? It was you who said the 2 children were grandsons. So I decided to give birth. If it weren't for you, how could it be like this now? And I thought you liked them very much before. Seeing her talk back, Ryan was so angry that he slapped her in the face. How dare you talk to mother like this? She is also doing it for our good. As the saying goes, like mother, like son. It's all because of what you taught him that the son is like this now. You're talking nonsense. You're always away from home. And when something happens, you put all the blame on me. Mia was not to be outdone and slapped him on the face. Soon the 2 of them were fighting each other. Leo and Nathan on the side were laughing especially happily, and clapped their hands and cheered. Good fight. Dad. Hit her harder. Kill Mom. Mom. Come on too. It's so boring. Why isn't there any blood? Grandfather had a look of seeing a ghost on his face. He didn't say another word but quietly ran away with Luna in his arms. A few days later, Ryan's mother was discharged from the hospital. She called Mia aside. I'll give you 2 choices. Either you and Ryan have another child, or Ryan goes out to find a surrogate. Anyway, I will not tolerate the family property falling into the hands of these 2 monsters. Mia's face was extremely ugly. Mom, you know I can't have children anymore. So, you must accept that Ryan goes out to find a surrogate now. If you don't accept it. There was a tinge of ruthlessness in her eyes. Then don't blame me for directly asking Ryan to go out and find other women. Mom, you can't do this. Mia screamed in exasperation. Back then, I damaged my uterus just to give birth to a grandson for your family. How can you turn your back on me now? She grabbed Ryan's mother's hand. Only when you buy the villa first can I agree to Ryan finding a surrogate. Otherwise, I have no guarantee at all. But Ryan's mother didn't even look at her and shook off her hand violently. What I said at the beginning was that if you gave birth to a grandson, I would buy you a villa. But look at what you've given birth to. 2 brats and 1 idiot. If there had been just 1 normal child, I would have bought it for you. Ryan's mother snorted coldly. I'll put it bluntly here. Either accept that Ryan finds another woman, or take your 3 sons and get out. Our family doesn't need such grandchildren. But before she could finish her words, Nathan sprang out from some corner directly. His eyes were glaring. His face distorted and hideous. He grabbed Ryan's mother by the neck and pushed her against the wall. Aren't you the grandma who loves me the most? Don't you want us anymore? Although he was smiling, his face was terrifying. He stood up, a full head taller than Ryan's mother. Ryan's mother was terrified, and her lips were trembling. No. I was just saying something in anger. But he and Leo didn't listen to her explanation at all. They picked up the ashtray on the table and smashed it on her head. With a clang, it directly made a bloody hole. Mia was so frightened that she waved her hands desperately. No, I was just talking to Grandma. You don't need to be so impulsive. Nathan's eyes were bloodthirsty as he stared coldly at Mia's face. Mom, what about you? Do you also don't want us anymore? No. No. Mia was so frightened that she backed away straight. I don't. Grandma and I were discussing buying a villa for you. When we buy the villa, our whole family will live in it. But Nathan couldn't listen to her at all. He was very irritable now. And when he was irritable, he wanted to hit people. He raised his hand and slapped Mia in the face. And then kicked her. Mia ouch, and fell to the ground. When Ryan came back, he saw such a scene. His mother's face was covered with blood. And Mia was also lying on the ground, while the two children beside them had extremely happy expressions on their faces. His head was about to burst. He quickly called an ambulance and sent his mother to the hospital. That night, his mother had a major operation. After the operation, a piece of her skull was missing, and there was a dent in her whole head. It was extremely hideous. Mia was a little better. She just had a fracture and could be discharged from the hospital after a few days of rest. During this period, without anyone to take care of Leo and Nathan, they wandered around outside the community. When passing by a cake shop, they were attracted by the cakes in the window. They went in and asked for them directly. But the people there didn't know them at all and didn't know who they were. So they refused directly. They picked up the mop beside them and smashed the glass counter directly. The people in the cake shop called the police on the spot and arrested them. Later, it was still my mother-in-law who paid the money and bailed them out. My mother-in-law still didn't know how brutal they were. She only knew that Ryan's family had been taking turns to go to the hospital recently. Hearing Mia say that she was beaten by her two sons, my mother-in-law thought it was just little boys being naughty. Seeing that the two children were so hungry that they were about to rob food in the cake shop, she felt extremely sorry for them and immediately brought the two children home. In the new environment, they finally behaved themselves for a few days. After a while, both Mia and Ryan's mother were discharged from the hospital. But Ryan had disappeared without a trace and hadn't even come back for 3 months in a row. Mia couldn't wait any longer and went to question Ryan's mother. Ryan's mother curled her lips and said infuriately, "I told you before. I found a surrogate for Ryan. That girl is very beautiful and she is a college student. Now Ryan has already moved in with her." "What?" Mia exploded immediately. "Didn't you say it was a surrogate? What does it mean to move in with her? I'm still not divorced from him. It's because you're useless." Ryan's mother glanced at her up and down a few times and said with disgust, "If you were really capable, no matter how beautiful the outsider was, she couldn't steal him away." Mia was furious. "No. Change her. I don't agree that this person will be our surrogate. It's not up to you." Ryan's mother sneered. "The girl is already pregnant with our family's eldest grandson. After all, she is young and gets pregnant easily." Mia was dumbfounded. She angrily smashed on our door, rushed in, and then screamed crazily like a madman, "Serafina! It was you who told me not to have an abortion at the beginning, and let me give birth to two monsters. Now Ryan doesn't want this family anymore. Give me back Ryan and my villa." She raised her hand to hit me, but I pushed her to the ground. I smiled. "I just showed you a doctor's debunking video. The final decision was in your hands. Back then, you were scolded so much by netizens, but you still insisted on giving birth. I didn't interfere. And you should get the key point. It's Ryan who is having an affair now. What's the use of you coming to my house?" Her face turned pale. "Then what should I do now?" I wrote an address for her. It was the address that I secretly wrote down a few days ago when that female college student came to the hospital to register. Doesn't he want to escape from this family? Then you take your two sons to ask him face if he really intends to abandon you. Also let that girl know that Ryan has a family. She understood. Yes. Prosperity for one means prosperity for all. And loss for one means loss for all. No one can jump out of the abyss. I waved to Leo and Nathan again. "Your father doesn't want you anymore. He has a new mother outside. And the new mother is already pregnant. Are you willing to give your mother some courage and accompany her to go there?" Mia also quickly brainwashed them. During the 3 months he was away from home, he has been living with the new mother. In the future, his house and his money will all belong to the little brother. Do you see? Now he has run away because he dislikes you. In this family, only I will never abandon you. The two impulsive children became even more excited after hearing these few words. Let's go and kill him. Yes. Teach him a lesson. Throw him into the oil pan and fry him to death. 14 She took her 2 sons and rushed angrily to the place according to the address I gave her. When they arrived at the entrance of the community, Mia asked her 2 sons to wait outside the community gate while she went in first to negotiate. The 2 children looked at each other, as if they had thought of something interesting. And they smiled happened to coincide lie. Mia didn't notice. The place where the female college student lived was opposite our hospital. I found a ward and adjusted the camera of my mobile phone to the maximum zoom, so that I could just see Ryan's and the female college student's home. I saw Ryan get up to open the door when he heard the knock. When he saw that it was Mia, he was stunned for a moment. I couldn't hear what he said. Then I saw Mia suddenly push him aside and rush in to slap the female college student. She shouted at the female college student with a very bad look on her face. The female college student's lower abdomen was slightly bulging. She carefully protected her belly. But after being hit, she also unceremoniously slapped her back. Mia became furious and picked up the stool beside her and smashed it at her belly, but was pushed away hard by Ryan. Ryan stopped Mia, turned his head and said something to the female college student. The female college student slammed the door and left. Mia wanted to chase after her, but was stopped by Ryan. The female college student ran all the way to the outside of the community, just as she took out her mobile phone. At this time, Leo Nathan got a motorcycle from somewhere. They shouted on the motorcycle, pulled the throttle to the maximum, and rushed straight at the female college student. The speed was so fast that the female college student's face turned pale with fright. She didn't even know how to dodge. She just watched the motorcycle hitting her, and her eyes were wide open with horror. The motorcycle was getting closer and closer to her, and it was about to hit her in the next second. At the critical moment, Nathan suddenly stepped on the brake. The tires rubbed against the ground, making a sharp sound. When the motorcycle stopped, it was less than half a meter away from the female college student. The female college student was so frightened, and that her legs went weak and she fell to the ground with a plop. And the blood color on her face disappeared instantly. Bright red blood slowly flowed out from under her legs, and she screamed while covering her belly. But there was not even a security guard in the community, and there were not many people at this time, except for Leo Nathan. No one could hear her screams. Mafon laughed loudly. My dear father. Except for us. You don't want to have any other children. He pulled the throttle again and turned around with Leo and left. It was 10 minutes later when Ryan knew all this. He had negotiated the terms with Mia, and sent Mia out of the community. But he saw a woman in a white dress, lying unconscious on the ground at the entrance of the community. The blood under her body had spread all over the ground, against the backdrop of the white dress. It looked particularly terrifying. He was as rigid as a stone. Then he came to his senses and scrambled over on all fours. Wang Zhou. Wang Zhu. What's wrong with you? He shouted Wang Zhu's name loudly and kept patting her face. But no matter how much he called, Wang Zhu didn't respond at all. Her hands hung limply on the ground as if she was in a coma. He was so frightened that he took out his mobile phone trembling lie and dialed 120. Mia also came out at this time. When she saw the blood all over the ground, she was very frightened. She wanted to come over to see what was going on, but was pushed away by Ryan. Get out. Get out. Stay away from us. You jinx. He picked up Wang Zhu horizontally and ran hurriedly to the roadside. 15 Mia didn't dare to contact Ryan for several days in a row. She knew that all this was done by Leo Nathan. She even regretted taking Leo Nathan into Wang Zhu's community at the beginning. She was afraid that Ryan was angry, and her appearance would further irritate him, in case he found out later that she didn't come to the community alone at the beginning and then blamed her again. Then the two of them could never go back to the past. She had been hiding in her parents' home during this time. She thought that Ryan would contact her sooner or later. When Ryan took the initiative to contact her, she would then push all this onto me, and the two of them would surely be as good as before. But after waiting for a month, Ryan still didn't contact her. She finally couldn't sit still and called Ryan. But the call was hung up. She wanted to ask Ryan's mother how Ryan was. But after finally getting up the courage and opening the door of her own house, she found that the quilt on her mother-in-law's bed was neatly folded, and the clothes in the wardrobe were gone. In the living room, all the things related to Ryan and his mother were gone. She then remembered that it seemed that she hadn't heard her mother-in-law's voice during this period. She hadn't even heard the sound of the opposite door opening. A bad premonition rose in her heart. She called Ryan's mother again, but Ryan's mother still hung up. Having no other choice, she could only send a text message to Ryan. "What do you mean? Are you avoiding me?" Ryan didn't reply to her. After waiting for a long time, she sent another message. "I admit that I'm responsible for Wangzu's matter. Let's have a good talk." After waiting for another long time, her mobile phone rang. She hurriedly opened it, and a text message popped up. It was a bank message, indicating that 1 million yuan had been deposited into her account. She was stunned for a moment. And then Ryan's message came right after. 1 million yuan for you. A lawyer will come to talk to you about the divorce tomorrow. Don't come to me anymore. You can have our son. Let's part on good terms. She went crazy. As if something had exploded in her head. She desperately called Ryan. But Ryan refused to answer no matter what. She then went to the police. But the police pointed at the word lawyer in the text message, and said that Ryan was not missing. This was a family matter and they should handle it themselves or sue. She was helpless and so worried that she didn't know what to do. She couldn't help but take out her mobile phone again, press the voice message button, and shout at Ryan, "You giving me 1 million yuan? What do you mean? Come back quickly. I don't want 1 million yuan. I just want you to come back." Ryan didn't respond. She desperately sent messages. "I'm begging you. Come back. You can't leave these 2 children to me. I'll die." She desperately sent messages until finally her voice carried a tinge of crying. "I'm begging you. As long as you are willing to show up, I'll do anything. No matter who you live with. I'm willing to accept it. As long as you are willing to come back. Please." But when the message was sent again, it showed on the other side that she was no longer his friend. She went completely crazy. She hurriedly bought a train ticket to Ryan's hometown. But when she put down her mobile phone and was packing her luggage, Leonace and suddenly rushed in from outside the door. The 2 of them stretched out their hands to her with a grin. "Mom. We heard it. You have 1 million yuan. What? How did you know?" Mia hurriedly wiped away her tears, and hid her mobile phone behind her in a fluster. "It's nothing. You heard it wrong." The 2 of them were still smiling. But their smiles were a bit more ferocious. "Are you sure? My dear mother? We hate it the most when others lie." At this time, Leonathan was already in the 1st grade of junior high school. The 2 of them were a whole head taller than Mia. Mia was a little scared and subconsciously shrank into the corner. "This was given by your father. I'm going to return it to him. If I take it, he will never come back. I'm begging you. Don't make trouble for me." She wanted to turn around and continue packing her luggage. But suddenly a hand grabbed her by the neck. Nathan, with a ferocious look, lifted her off the ground and pushed her to the balcony. He squeezed her neck hard with his fingers and said gloomily, "Take out the money, or I'll kill you." Mia was pinned firmly against the wall by him, and couldn't move. The window behind her was open, and the wall was only up to her waist. Nathan was so strong that her entire upper body had leaned out of the window, and the wind was whistling in her ears. Nathan had a ferocious look, and his eyes were full of violence, as if he was going to push her out the next second. Mia's upper and lower teeth chattered, and she screamed in horror, "Son, don't be reckless. Let's go inside and talk properly. The money really belongs to your father. I don't want to take a penny from him." But the more she explained, the more irritable Nathan became. His eyes were wide open with anger. He pushed her out of the window with force using his fingers. Mia struggled desperately. Nathan's eyes were blood red. He lifted her feet and threw her down. With a bang, There were screams everywhere downstairs. 16. Someone shouted. Someone has been killed by the fall. I looked up in doubt following the sound. Mia had fallen to the ground. There was also a woman lying beside her, with a big belly. It seemed that she was taking a walk in the community with her husband. But misfortune fell from the sky and she was just hit by Mia. Her husband hugged her and wailed beside her, until she was carried into the ambulance. He didn't follow but rushed upstairs angrily. His eyes were burning with fury. He kicked open the door of Ryan's house. Was it someone from your family who jumped off the building? Why did she jump off the building in the community? If she wanted to die, couldn't she go further away? He scanned the room with his eyes. Only the dazed Oliver was left in the room. Leo Nathan had disappeared. The man, not knowing the truth, as if he had found his target, rushed over in a few steps and grabbed Oliver by the collar. Was that your mother? Why did she jump off the building? Did you provoke her? Oliver stared at him blankly, not understanding what he was saying at all. He thought Oliver was just scared. So he slapped Oliver in the face. Speak. Speak to me. Oliver didn't answer but giggled. This giggle seemed more like a provocation. There happened to be a basin of water in the sink. He grabbed Oliver by the collar and pushed his head into the water. Then he lifted him out of the water. Your mother didn't educate you well. I'll educate you for your mother. Oliver trembled violently all over. The man thought Oliver was finally scared. He grabbed his hair tightly and pushed his head into the water again. You made your mother angry to death. Why did you have to make her angry at this time? Oliver struggled desperately. He wanted to grab the edge of the sink and climb out, but the man firmly held his head. The man roared, Have you experienced death? I'll let you experience death for 20 seconds. After saying this, there were 10 seconds left. He began to count down. 10, 9, 8, 7. When he counted to 1, Oliver had stopped struggling. He was satisfied and pulled him out and threw him on the ground. Because you were disobedient. Your mother was so angry with you that she jumped off the building. My wife is still in an unknown state of life or death. You should be more obedient in the future. You know? Oliver lay limp on the ground, his lips pale and his face purple. That man was still scolding. There are too many naughty children like you, which causes too much pressure on parents. Parents' demands are very simple. They just hope that you study hard. Is it so difficult? Tell me. Where is the difficulty? Oliver lay motionless on the ground. The man chattered on and on. Seemingly, he noticed something was wrong. Suddenly, his face changed. He subconsciously crouched down and reached out to touch his breath. But when his hand reached his nose, he turned pale with fright and suddenly fell back and sat on the ground. Then his voice trembled distorted lie. He's dead. He's dead. When the police arrived, the man was still shouting. I didn't mean to let him die. I just wanted to teach him a lesson. I held him for 20 seconds. Why did he die in 20 seconds? The neighbors who were watching knew the truth and couldn't help answering. He is a Down syndrome child with an unsound mind. How could he hold his breath? The man was petrified. How could this be? How could this be? His legs went limp and a patch of his trousers was wet. But he was still handcuffed and taken into the police car. 17. My mother-in-law and my husband Max were still out buying groceries. Only when they heard the sound of the police car did they know that something had happened in the community. They came over after hearing the news. When they heard everyone talking and saying that the dead person was Mia, my mother-in-law's shopping basket immediately fell to the ground. She hurriedly climbed upstairs. But Ryan's house across the door had been cordoned off. My daughter. My daughter. She slumped to the ground, patting her thighs and wailing loudly. Max had been looking for Leo and Nathan. After looking for a long time, there was no sign of the two of them in the house or in the community. He went outside the community to look for them, but on the way, suddenly someone set off firecrackers on his hair. Immediately, blood flowed out from the top of his head. Leo and Nathan jumped out of the grass and clapped their hands, saying, So much fun. Really so much fun. When Max saw them, he couldn't laugh at this time. There was horror in his eyes when he looked at them, as if he had seen devils. Nathan was soon taken away by the police. In the building opposite, someone had installed a surveillance camera at home, which just captured the scene of Nathan pushing me downstairs. At night, I heard Max and my mother-in-law talking in the room. This can't go on like this. He is a born bad seed. Now his mother is dead and his father has run away. The police will surely ask us to take in Leo. If we rashly let him stay at home, it may bring endless disasters. My mother-in-law wiped her tears quietly and said anxiously again, "What should we do? He is abnormal. I have already lost one daughter. You can't have anything happen to you." My husband smoked one cigarette after another without saying a word. At this time, I walked in and offered an idea. You pretend to take him on a trip. Then leave him in the mountains. And say you got separated. If you are luckier and meet a family without a son, just give him to them. In those big mountain valleys. Once you go in, you can't run out. If he tries to run, the whole village can beat him to death. My mother-in-law quite agreed. This is a good idea. Son, you should make a trip these days. My daughter has been killed by him. We can't have any more accidents. I also said to my mother-in-law, you and Max should both go. Since it's a trip, he won't be suspicious if you go together. My mother-in-law was a little hesitant, but when she thought of Mia's misery, she agreed again. 18. Leo was still a child after all. When he heard that he was going to be taken out to play, he immediately excitedly packed his things. My mother-in-law and Max looked at each other and also simply packed some things into their bags. They discussed all night and set the destination as a coal mining area in Shaanxi. After all, Leo was over 10 years old. If he was sent into the mountains, probably no family would be willing to adopt him. They planned to send Leo to the mining area to work as a coal miner for others. That place was in the greatest need of manpower. And moreover, it was far away. Once Leo went there, he would never escape in his lifetime. Before leaving, my mother-in-law burned 3 sticks of incense. She murmured, "I don't mean it on purpose. I just hope my son can live well. And that place is quite suitable for Leo. They need strong men there. Maybe when he gets there, Leo can make a great achievement." Max urged his mother to stop murmuring and hurry up to set off. They put Leo's things in the car. Before leaving, I waved to Leo, "Come here for a moment." Leo looked at me impatiently. "What?" I took out an Ultraman toy. "Come here. This is for you." He walked over with a slanting look and snatched the Ultraman toy. Behind the paper card of the Ultraman toy, there was also a mobile phone. I said to him, "Auntie also wants to play. But Auntie can't adjust her working hours. If you can keep the call on for 24 hours all the way and let Auntie hear what you are playing, then Auntie will give you this mobile phone." I knew he wanted a mobile phone. Previously, he had snatched someone else's mobile phone at the school gate. Unfortunately, the other person was a hooligan and immediately found someone to beat Leo up. Later, when they asked Mia for 1 million, they also planned to buy a mobile phone first. Under Max's urging, he got into the car with the Ultraman toy. 19. In the car, I heard Max trying to communicate with Leo all the time. "That place is very interesting. You can play for a few more days. There's no hurry. I have asked the teacher for a week's leave. If it's not enough, I will ask for more." Leo fiddled with his mobile phone and ignored him. Max said again, "If you like that place, I can also help you transfer to a school there." Leo gave him a sinister look. Just this one look made Max shut up in fright. The car had been driving for several days and nights and finally arrived in Shaanxi. During this period, it was almost always Max and the grandmother chatting breezily while Leo remained silent. By the time the car drove into the mountainous area, 4 days had passed. It seemed as if Leo wasn't in the car. I heard Max excitedly say to the grandmother, "Almost there. There are still 20 kilometers to go." I've contacted the people there. Once we dump Leo there, we'll leave. The roads there are difficult to travel and there are all locals. Even if he wants to run, he can't get out. The grandmother also smacked her lips with satisfaction. Great. We can finally get rid of this devil. At this time, I sent a text message to Leo from a mobile phone number that I don't usually use. The so-called travel is actually a pretext. They plan to abandon you there and sell you as a coal miner. They want to get rid of you. A burden. Run away quickly while you haven't arrived yet. After reading the message, Leo stood up abruptly. His movement startled the grandmother. She immediately turned her head and shouted, "What are you doing? The road here is bumpy. Sit down quickly." But Leo simply ignored her. He somehow pulled out a pair of scissors and grabbed Max by the neck from behind. He pointed the scissors at Max's neck. And his gloomy voice reached Max's ears. "Uncle, where are you planning to take me?" At this time, Max was so frightened that he couldn't speak. He wanted to step on the brake. But Leo directly poked the tip of the scissors in. "Don't stop. Keep driving." Max could only do as he was told. He stammered to explain again. "We are taking you to play. Didn't we all agree before we left? You were quite happy at that time." Leo pushed the scissors in a little deeper. "Uncle, I don't like lies. I want to hear the truth." Max's lips were trembling. And he explained in a trembling voice. "This is the truth. We do have a relative there. If you don't believe me, ask your grandmother." Yes. 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 We do have a relative there. We have already made contact." The grandmother was so frightened and that she was trembling all over. She wanted to snatch the scissors from Leo's hand, but was frightened back by Leo's fierce look. He tightly gripped Max's neck. "Uncle, don't deceive me anymore. I know that you want to sell me." "No. No. Who told you this?" Feeling the pain in his neck, Max was so frightened that he was almost about to wet himself. Seeing that there were no cars ahead, he quickly summoned up his strength and tried to divert Leo's attention. "We do have a relative there. Don't be instigated by others. I have never thought of selling you. You also know how kind uncle and grandmother were to you before." The grandmother also opened Max's mobile phone to show it to him. It was the person in charge of the coal mining area that he had contacted before, in order to prevent others from finding out at that time. He noted it as his friend Lao Go. "Look. This Lao Go is my friend. Isn't it clearly written in note? We just want to go and play at his place for a few days." Leo's hand loosened a little. "Really? Really? We are just going to play. Moreover, grandmother has only asked for a week's leave for you. It's not a withdrawal from school. How could we not go back?" Leo didn't speak. He stared at him ferociously as if he was thinking about the truth in his words. Just then, Max suddenly stepped on the brake. Leo didn't stand firmly and bumped into the front seat. Max took the opportunity to turn around quickly and grab Leo's wrist, trying to snatch the scissors from his hand. But Leo quickly regained his senses and kicked Max hard in the face. His strength was so great that Max was kicked and hit the windshield behind him. The grandmother was so frightened by this situation that she cried out. She wanted to see how badly Max was injured. But Leo stabbed the scissors into her shoulder. "Ah!" the grandmother screamed. Blood gushed out. She covered her shoulder and couldn't move. Max bared his teeth in pain. He was dizzy and wanted to grab the steering wheel. But in just a few seconds, Leo got out of the back seat, pulled open the front seat and dragged Max out. Max was dragged to the back seat like a dead dog, and his hands and feet were firmly tied with ropes by him. Leo returned to the driver's seat, stepped on the accelerator, and the car sped up. The wind was whistling in the ears at such a high speed. "Stop! Stop for me!" Max roared. Leo laughed crazily. Max leaned forward and hit the front seat with his body like a madman. Leo's eyes were almost popping out. He clenched his teeth tightly and stared fixedly ahead. Just then, Max, I don't know when, untied the rope binding his wrists and strangled Leo's neck from behind. He threatened loudly in his ear. "Stop, or I'll strangle you to death." Leo didn't stop. His face was hideous, and he laughed maniacally. Tears were almost about to fall from his laughter. "Come on. Strangle me to death." He pushed the accelerator to the floor, with a strange expression on his face. But his hands casually let go of the steering wheel. The car immediately lost control and drove straight forward. Max was greatly alarmed and shouted for the grandmother to step on the brake. But it was too late. There was a cliff ahead. The car rushed down at the fastest speed. When the police found me, I was crying my heart out and on the verge of fainting. "The child has just lost his mother." They said they would take the child out to play and relax. How could such a thing happen? After their car fell off the cliff, it caught on fire. That place was desolate and uninhabited, and few people passed by. When someone finally noticed, they quickly asked the villagers to put out the fire. In the end, only 3 charred corpses were dragged out. All of their mobile phones were burned into a pile of scrap metal in the big fire. Eventually, the police closed the case as an ordinary traffic accident. Also, since Max bought insurance every year, after his death, I received a sum of compensation. At the same time, the judgment for Jean also came down, the death penalty. Now, all these scourges are dead. I sent a message to Ryan, telling him the news of Nathan's death penalty, and I asked him if he wanted to see Nathan one last time. He rejected without hesitation. Through Ryan's WeChat moments, I learned that Luna is living a very good life now. In their family, everyone favors boys over girls, except for the grandfather who likes girls. After going back, the grandfather hired the best doctor to treat her, and found many playmates for her. Although the little girl is still a bit behind children of the same age, she is very happy every day. Ryan remarried a woman, but it was not Wangzhou. When they got married, the woman was pregnant, but it seemed that she had an abortion later. On the other side of the phone, Ryan seemed to feel a bit embarrassed about his straightforward refusal. So he sent me another message. "I saw the news. Your mother-in-law and your husband are both dead. Don't be too sad. You still have to be strong and keep living." He transferred another sum of money to me. "It's not easy for you as a woman, since we were related by marriage once. You take this money and find someone to remarry as soon as possible." I withdrew the money into my card contentedly. The police had no way to verify the cause of death of Max and the others. Ryan would not dig deeper, and other relatives would not think too much either. As for Ryan, I think he probably will never come back here again in his life. For him, this place is no different from a nightmare. I put away my phone and smiled extremely happily. My heart has never felt so comfortable. The end.